In our previous lessons, we described the different forms of carbon, which include diamond, graphite, coke, soot, and charcoal. We also described diamond as the hardest natural substance known to humans. In this lesson, we will be looking at one of the important chemical properties of carbon called combustion. Combustion is simply the rapid chemical combination of a substance with oxygen, which produces heat and light. Some people think that a diamond cannot be burned because it is the hardest natural substance known, and also because only a diamond can cut another diamond. What do you think? Actually, a diamond can be burned. The fact that it is the hardest natural substance known does not mean that it cannot be burned. The truth is, all forms of carbon, including diamond, can be burnt in excess oxygen to form carbon-4 oxide. However, the temperature or the amount of heat energy required to burn the different forms of carbon differ. For example, to burn diamond in air, a temperature of about 900 degrees Celsius is required. That's an incredible amount of heat, isn't it? This is because each carbon atom in diamond has strong covalent bonds linking it to 4 other carbon atoms, and a lot of energy is needed to separate the atoms. The combustion of graphite is also not easy, but definitely easier than diamond. It takes place at a temperature of about 700 degrees Celsius. Also, other forms of carbon such as coal, coke, and charcoal burn in air or excess oxygen to produce carbon-4 oxide. These differences in combustion properties prove that diamond, graphite, coal, and the other allotropes of carbon are indeed different forms of carbon in the same physical state, as explained in our previous lesson on allotropy. Before we conclude our lesson, it is important to note that carbon-4 oxide, which is CO2, would only be produced if any form of carbon is burned in excess supply of air or oxygen at the required temperature. If the supply of air or oxygen is limited or not sufficient, carbon-2 oxide gas, or CO, will be produced instead. Here's a summary of today's lesson. All forms of carbon, including diamond, can be burned in excess oxygen or air to form carbon-4 oxide. If the supply of air or oxygen is limited during combustion of carbon, carbon-2 oxide will be produced instead. In our next lesson, we will be considering the chemical process involved in a charcoal fire. You don't want to miss it. I'll see you then.